I'm Tony Bannon, the Ron and Donna Fielding director at George Eastman House, and I'm here with Ed Kashi, the great photojournalist. It's an honor to be with you, Ed. When I think of your work, I think not just of the single image. I think of the great series that you have done on important topics, and the care that you have taken in seeing that the conversation begun by those pictures is continued. Do I have it right? Is that the way you see yourself?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I'll put it to you another way, that if I wasn't a photographer, I'd probably be an anthropologist or a sociologist, that I'd be some sort of a social scientist, because I am engaged with the issues of the world. And I'm thankful that I found photography, or it found me, because it's become such an incredible way to do this thing I love doing, which is being engaged with issues and figuring out ways to tell stories that illuminate the issues.
Well, do you see yourself as an agent for social change?
Um, yes, in my wildest dreams, yes. It took a long time for me to feel that I could truly call myself a photojournalist, because I hold these things in such high regard, and let's say I'm striving to be an agent of social change. Absolutely.
Some might say that photojournalism is dead. Is it still effective? Can social change, in fact, be rendered with photojournalism?
I think beyond the sort of people who, as I say, who have drank the Kool-Aid, the people who just love photography and love photojournalism, it's not so important whether people care about photojournalism. What's important is that people care about the world, and people care about issues, and people care about making the world a better place. And as long as those conditions or those impulses exist, then people will care about photojournalism, whether they're thinking about it or not.
The distribution methods are falling apart, right? They're changing, that's for sure. Can we count on the old distribution methods?
Well, the distribution mechanisms for making a living at it are falling apart, but the distribution mechanisms for disseminating it have never been more broad, more widely existent. I mean, it's incredible. Problem I have every day is my Google alerts show how people steal my pictures and pirate them and my videos and put them up on YouTube without asking, and I don't make money for the most part on these uses. So I think, I want to separate, let's say, how will we make a living as a photojournalist from the incredibly robust moment we're in for disseminating that work. And if people are pirating not just my work, but other photojournalists' work, that means people must find some value in it. We're living in a sort of screwy time where, we all know this, or anybody who reads a newspaper or magazine knows this, that we are living in a time for most of media where, especially the younger generation feels that content should be free. And obviously I have a problem with that, because then there will be no content left. My work in the Niger Delta probably reflects $250,000-$300,000 of costs in producing that work. That's a lot of money, and so I'm not saying that's what I made. But that's what it cost to get me out there over a 3-year period multiple times. And so who's going to pay for that in the future? That's the question. How will we continue to finance and support this kind of in-depth, long-form visual storytelling? Because clearly people want it. People want it.
I remember when your work on the Niger Delta was shown at George Eastman House, there were people who came from a great distance to see the work. I remember a politician who was active in Nigeria came. There was a Canadian diplomat who came to speak with you. Does anything come of those moments when people come to engage the subject of your work? What happens? Can we count on change as a result of the exhibitions?
I don't know if there's a direct relationship between the creation of media materials, as I like to call it, my pictures, the audio, the video that I've accumulated on this subject. I don't know if there's a direct relationship between making that work, having it be seen, and then change taking place. But I'm absolutely clear on how it contributes to the movement towards change. So for instance, and this is why I have really come to see how important it is for people like myself to have my work get into the hands of academics and foundations and NGOs and people who are engaged with the particular issue my work might be about. So in this case, the Niger Delta. Because I myself and the media that might publish and disseminate this work cannot affect change. But I've seen at the University of Michigan or Syracuse University, in San Diego, a number of places around the country, a high school in Palo Alto that is using my book on the Niger Delta as mandatory teaching materials. And I'm sure that is having an impact on the people, on these kids, because I get emails and I get letters from them, telling me how it's touched them, how it's opened their minds up. So that's one way, what I call like the trickle down or trickle up, the way information moves through a society. So that's like a grassroots approach, if you like. But then Oxfam America adopted my work and is using it, and also Amnesty International in the UK, to push for this legislation, which actually was part of the new finance bill that was passed last week in the Congress, to create more transparency in the extractive industries. So that to me is a very direct connection. And again, it's not because of my work that the congressmen and the senators are voting for this bill, but I have to believe that it's all part of the mix of how you convince people that things need to change or legislation needs to change. So in this particular case, this is Publish What You Pay. It's a movement to make corporations involved in extractive industries, oil, gas, mining, to publish how much are they making in the Niger Delta or wherever they're working. How is that money being used? How much of it is going towards profit? How much is being reinvested in research and development? How much is being used for community development in the places where they operate?
What I have come to know and respect about you, you eat locally, you buy organically, you're a host to people from around the world in your home. You have cared for the elderly.
I found it's become very exciting about, and I love talking about this when I teach as well, that being a journalist has made me a better human being. That by devoting myself to certain issues and topics, I have learned. And again, the Aging Project is probably the most dramatic and beautiful example of that. And so by spending 8 years looking at how America is growing old, when it came time to take care of the one parent that my wife and I had that was still alive, her father, we moved across country to New Jersey from San Francisco and moved him into our house because he was suffering from dementia and sort of not able to live alone anymore. So that's an example where if I hadn't done that project, I might have just said to Julie, let's just find an assisted living place for him in New Jersey. I don't want to move from I don't want to disrupt my life. Whereas after working on this for 8 years, it was like, well, there's no question what we're going to do, because now I've seen what it's like when you're an old man and you've pissed off everyone in the world and nobody wants to take care of you. Or I've seen what it's like when you've been a good person and you're surrounded by love and you're surrounded by care and your kids want to rally to your side. And I'm like, I get it now, And so it's sort of, doing this work and being exposed to these realities, I don't know how I can't help but educate you and teach you things so that you can apply them in your own life.